When she leapt into a stranger's arms, she uncovered a millionaire's devastating secret. The night was thick with secrets, a heavy mist wrapping around the bustling streets like a shroud. In the heart of the city, where neon lights flickered like dying stars, Lena felt the pulse of something strange in the air. A storm was brewing, but it wasn't just the weather that made her heart race. She had to escape, and in her frantic dash through the darkened alleys, she never expected to collide with a man tall, broad, and surprisingly familiar. Or was he? His name was whispered only in shadows, Jonathan Reyes, a name linked to fortunes and whispers of betrayal. As Lena tripped and fell into his arms, time seemed to pause with an electric jolt. She caught a glimpse of his face, a mix of shock and something else. Was it recognition? Or fear? She couldn't tell. Her heart pounded harder, each beat echoing in the silence that hung between them like an unspoken promise. She pulled back, searching his eyes, which held depths of secrets she could drown in. Around them, the city continued its chaotic dance, oblivious to the gravity of their encounter. The air crackled with tension. What could this man hide? Just moments ago, she had been running from a past that wouldn't let her go. And now here she was, tangled in a web she never intended to weave. What horrified her most wasn't just the billion-dollar mystery swirling around his name. No, it was the glimmer of panic behind his confident facade. "You shouldn't be here," he hissed, looking over his shoulder as if the truth would come crashing down on them at any second. His grip on her arm tightened, sending chills racing down her spine. "Why?" she gasped, breathless, caught in a whirlwind of confusion and fear. The ghosts of her past loomed large, and here she was drawn into a flickering light of danger, both exhilarating and terrifying. Just as she opened her mouth to ask more, a distant scream echoed through the alley, slicing through the silence like a knife. The hairs on her neck prickled. Was it just her imagination, or was danger lurking close behind? Was this the beginning of chaos? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The scream shivered through Lena, breaking her out of her trance. Jonathan's eyes widened, and in that fleeting second, she understood they were no longer just two people in a chance encounter. Forces beyond her comprehension were tugging at the threads of their fates. What devastating truth was he hiding? What hidden world had she just leaped into? Suddenly, the alley began to feel smaller, the shadows creeping closer, pressing against her. As if sensing her spiraling thoughts, Jonathan loosened his grip, glancing nervously again, the streetlights casting an eerie glow on his chiseled features. "We need to get out of here," he murmured urgently, his voice barely above a whisper. He took a step back, an invitation mixed with desperation, and in that moment, Lena faced a choice that could change everything. Dive deeper into the unknown or retreat into the safety of her ordinary life. But what awaited her was far more than what she had imagined. Lena's breath hitched as Jonathan's gaze darted around, the urgency in his voice sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Now, Lena, please." It was the desperation in his tone that broke through her hesitation. The instinct to flee had taken root deep inside, but something in his eyes pulled her in, anchoring her to the spot. This man, tangled in shadows, might hold the key to her own past. "Where?" she whispered back, her heart racing. The screams faded into a haunting echo, just as the flickering streetlights added to the growing dread. She felt a surge of clarity. This wasn't about escaping her life anymore. No, it was about stepping into an unknown danger, and yet there was a strange thrill swimming beneath the surface. Suddenly, flashes of police lights sliced through the darkness at the end of the alley. Jonathan took a sharp breath, his eyes widening. "Follow me," he urged, grabbing her hand and dragging her deeper into the labyrinth of back streets. They raced through the alleyways, shadows blending into a night that felt alive. Lena's pulse thrummed in her ears as they darted around corners, the echo of hurried footsteps behind them growing louder. Panic set in, churning her stomach. "Who's after us?" "Not who," he panted, glancing over his shoulder. "What?" His cryptic response left her with more questions than answers, but she didn't have time to ask. The weight of his secret loomed over them, thickening the already tense atmosphere. They rounded a corner, finding themselves in a small courtyard. Moonlight spilled down like liquid silver, illuminating a few scattered crates and a rusty dumpster. Jonathan paused, panting heavily, eyes scanning the surroundings as if assessing their options. "We need to hide," he muttered, his voice a tight whisper. Just as they stepped behind a large barrel, Lena's mind spiraled. The danger felt almost surreal, like a twisted movie playing out before her. Jonathan was a stranger, yet inexplicably familiar. And in that moment, she felt his fear, raw and contagious. "The police?" she whispered, trembling at the thought of being caught. But something else gnawed at her, a gnawing sense of curiosity about what Jonathan was hiding. "What are you going to tell me?" His answer was cut short. A loud crash echoed nearby, making her gasp and cling to his arm. Her wide eyes met his, and for the first time, she saw vulnerability beneath the tough exterior. "I'll explain everything," he said, gripping her shoulders gently, "but you need to trust me right now." Before she could respond, shadows moved through the courtyard, deepening the darkness. Lena's heart-pounded figures cloaked in black appeared, their voices low but urgent. "He's close. We can't let him slip away again." Jonathan's breath hitched as he instinctively pulled Lena closer, shielding her behind the barrels. Her eyes darted, desperately trying to piece together the fragmented chaos. Who were these people? Why were they after him? A part of her screamed to run, but another part, the daring, rebellious part, she didn't know she had held her still. "Do you remember the night at the gala?" Jonathan asked suddenly, breaking the tense silence. The question confused her, pulling at her memories. What was he talking about? She racked her brain for any connection, shaking her head slightly. "It was a mistake, a whole world of mistakes," he continued, urgency lacing his voice. "They thought I was the enemy, but I'm not." Before he could finish, the intruders closed in, their voices filling the space around them. "We need to find him." Lena's stomach twisted with a mix of fear and exhilaration. What had she stumbled into? As Jonathan's gaze locked onto hers, she felt the realization dawn. This was no longer just about him. This was her fight, too. The tension in the air was electric. The secrets were pulling at the fabric of her being, begging her to decide. And then, in an instant, Jonathan took a step toward the light, ready to confront the shadows. "Are you with me?" The question hung heavy in the air. Would she leap into this chaos with him, or would she step back into the shadows of her own past? Just as the words were about to escape her lips, a loud shout shattered the stillness, sending a jolt through her body. There he is. Would she put everything on the line for a man she barely knew, only to find out the hidden truth behind his name? Or would this be her chance to break free from the chains that bound her? The choice opened like a chasm before her, pulling her closer to a truth she was scared to confront. Lena didn't have time to think. The urgency in Jonathan's voice, the fear etched on his face, it was all she needed to tug her from the brink of indecision. "I'm with you," she shouted, her voice surprising even herself. In a heartbeat, Jonathan surged forward, pulling her along as they burst from their hiding spot. The figures in black turned, startled, just as Jonathan led them into another narrow alleyway. The darkness enveloped them like a protective cloak, but Lena knew they could only stay ahead of their pursuers for so long. Footsteps echoed behind them, relentless. "Split up," shouted one of the shadowy figures. "We'll flank him." Panic surged through Lena. She could hear the ragged breaths of their pursuers, the tension increasing with each moment that passed. "Where do we go?" she gasped, her heart racing, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Trust me," Jonathan replied, darting to the left, then right as they zigzagged through the maze of alleys. She nearly lost her footing, but managed to keep up, her determination fueled by an overwhelming need to know what Jonathan was hiding. They turned into a small, dimly lit street lined with abandoned warehouses. The scent of rust and mildew filled the air and shivers ran down her spine. "We need to find a way out," he murmured, scanning their surroundings. "I have to get you to safety." "Safety? From what? What is happening?" she demanded, her voice rising in desperation. Jonathan stopped, his eyes narrowing with intensity. "Lena," he breathed her name like a prayer. "You have to understand what S after me is bigger than either of us. It's connected to the gala, to your life. They think I'm a traitor, and if they find you with me, they'll think the same about you." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. "Bigger than me?" she echoed, half in disbelief. What does that even mean? But there was no time for clarity. The shadows loomed closer, their shouts now sounding almost celebratory, a predatory excitement that sent Lena's heart racing. She could feel it in her bones. Whatever was happening, it was about to spiral out of control. A loud crash erupted from behind them, and Jonathan pulled her further into the depths of the shadows. "Let us go. This way," he shouted again, pulling Lena toward a side entrance of one of the warehouses. The door creaked open, and they slipped inside just as their pursuers spilled into the courtyard. Inside, the room was dark, filled with the musty odor of decay and dust motes dancing in the faintest light filtering through broken windows. Jonathan grasped her wrist, guiding her deeper into the cavernous space as they ducked behind old machinery and scattered crates. "Do you see that?" he whispered, pointing toward a stairway in the corner leading to the upper levels. "We might have a chance to climb out." Lena nodded, her mind reeling from the rush of adrenaline and fear. But a thought crept in, was this truly her path? To flee with a man whose life was filled with secrets and danger? The tension crackled in the air as the intruders searched the warehouse, their voices echoing, angry and determined. "He can't have gone far. How do you know this isn't a trap?" she murmured, desperately needing assurance. "It isn't," he insisted, his tone sharp. "I promise, I'll explain everything. Just stay with me." She locked eyes with him, searching for more than his words. And in that moment, she felt it, something unspoken, a connection deeper than the terror surrounding them. But before she could voice the swirling thoughts in her head, a sharp clang rang out as one of the figures slammed into a nearby crate. Jonathan's breathing quickened. "We need to move now." As they raced up the stairs, the possibility of escape hung before her like a flickering light. But beneath it all was a feeling that chilled her soul. What lay at the top, and would it lead to salvation or deeper peril? Just as they reached the second floor, the weight of Jonathan's secret threatened to drag her down. Would she finally learn the truth, or would it all be too late? And then, from behind them, came a voice, dripping with contempt. "You can't hide from us forever, Jonathan. We'll find you, and then we'll find her." Lena froze, fear clutching her throat. Who were they really after? Her, or the man who carried a burden she was now helplessly entwined with? The door to understanding was about to swing wide open, but would they be able to push through the darkness first? The air was thick with tension as they reached the upper floor, and Lena felt her heart thudding loudly in her ears. Jonathan moved ahead, glancing back to check if they were still followed, but his face remained tight with worry. She clutched the banister, feeling every splinter, every rough patch under her fingers as she tried to ground herself. "Tell me what's going on," she hissed, her voice barely above a whisper. But Jonathan seemed lost in thought, those shadows of urgency plastered across his features. "I can't," he began, shaking his head. "Not yet. Not here." She snatched his wrist, struggling against the fear spiraling in her gut. "What is the point if we don't know who's chasing us?" He faltered, casting a glance over his shoulder back down the staircase before pressing on, faced with a decision that hung between them like a fragile thread. "If I tell you, they'll hear. Just trust me, Lena. We have to stay one step ahead." The shadows below shifted, and she caught glimpses of dark figures moving like smoke, their voices weighing heavy with menace. "He can't hide up there. Search everywhere." "Look for a place to hide," Jonathan urged, his voice low and gravelly. We might before he could finish. The floorboards creaked underfoot, sending shockwaves of dread coursing through her. She instinctively clenched his arm tighter, her breath hitching. What was that? Stay quiet. Jonathan's words were sharp as he pushed her into a shadowed nook, concealed by old crates stacked haphazardly against the wall. They pressed together, silence draping over them like a suffocating blanket. Lena could hardly breathe, the stale air clogging her lungs as Jonathan's presence became a lifeline. She could feel his heart pounding, fast and wild, right next to hers. In the dark, it was easy to forget everything else. All that existed was this moment, this desperate hope. But that hope felt increasingly fragile as the voices below escalated. Check the upper floors. They can't have gone far. Sweat trickled down the back of her neck. What is it that they want? She whispered, her voice trembling. Jonathan squeezed her hand, and for a moment, it felt like a promise. I'll explain everything when we're safe, I swear. But the sirens of chaos grew louder. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the warehouse. They must have found something an obstruction, or worse, a lead. Move. Jonathan hissed, pulling her along as they slipped deeper into the shadows. They stumbled across another staircase, descending quickly but cautiously, their breaths coming in frantic bursts. Lena was overwhelmed. Everything felt surreal, the world spinning around her, a nightmare where she could hardly catch her breath. She turned to Jonathan. If you're innocent, then why? He silenced her with a fierce look. No time. Just stick close. But as they reached the bottom, a figure appeared in their path, blocking their escape. It was a silhouette, tall and imposing, shrouded in the gloom, eyes glinting with a predatory gleam. Thought you could escape, didn't you, Jonathan? The voice dripped with disdain and a sinister thrill. Lena recognized that tone, menacing, infused with too much confidence. Jonathan bristled, stepping in front of her. Leave her out of this. But the figure laughed, a sound that burrowed into her mind like a wasp. She's already involved, my friend. And that makes things so much more interesting. Lena felt the solid ground beneath her falter as dread washed over her. She was wrapped in a plot she didn't understand, ensnared by secrets thicker than the darkness around them. As she held her breath, waiting for Jonathan to react, uncertainty gnawed at her. Would they have the chance to escape? Or was this the moment everything spiraled into disaster? And then, just as the figure advanced, Jonathan's voice broke through the air like lightning. Run, Lena. No matter what happens, run. Those words echoed in her mind as her heart raced wild, torn between staying with him and fleeing into an uncertain nightmare. Would she have the courage to leap forward, unknown dangers lurking ahead? The walls of her reality were crumbling, and somewhere within the chaos, the truth beckoned. Would she discover the deep-rooted betrayal that twisted all of their fates together? Or would the shadows engulf her before she could even grasp it? Lena's body reacted faster than her mind could process. The instant Jonathan shouted, her feet propelled her forward, propelled by sheer instinct. She squeezed her eyes shut as she barreled through the darkness, hearing a snarl of outrage behind her. The air whooshed past her, heavy with dust and uncertainty, her heart a frantic drumbeat. With each stride, the weight of Jonathan's command echoed like an anthem. Run. She sprinted down a narrow corridor, her footfalls the only sound against the penetrating silence. But then, she collided with flesh. Strong arms wrapped around her, pulling her close as panic flooded her veins anew. The scent that enveloped her was foreign, a blend of cologne and something sweet, like old perfume. Whoa there. Easy. The stranger's voice quipped, holding her steady. She blinked, dazed. The figure lurking in the dark had shifted into a charming man, with an earnest look in his deep-set eyes, a stark contrast to the shadows that surrounded them. But suspicion gnawed at her. Where's she? We have to move, he urged, glancing back toward the corridor she had just exited. Simon. This way. Before she could protest, he maneuvered her away through a side door just as footsteps thundered closer. Lena couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal like a fraying thread. Was she leaping from one danger to the next? They emerged into a dimly lit room, cluttered and cramped, the air dense with the scent of gasoline. She stiffened, taking in her surroundings. Old tools were strewn about, along with faded plans pinned haphazardly on the wall. Across the room, a battered table held an open laptop, screen illuminating the otherwise dark space. "Who are you?" she demanded, pulling away slightly as he led her deeper into the shop. "What is going on?" "I need to find Jonathan." His face was a mix of concern and urgency. "You can't go back. Not now." He turned back toward the entrance, scanning the shadows as if expecting someone to follow. "They'll find him. He's got bigger enemies than you know." Panic surged anew. "Enemies? Why didn't he tell me?" "Because he's trying to protect you," the man replied, his voice steady. She could see the truth there, gleaming like a shard of glass in the dark. "But right now, you're in danger too. They're after a file, a powerful one. Jonathan is mixed up in something big." Lena was caught between distrust and instinct. "And you? Who are you in all this?" He faced her, vulnerability flashing in his eyes, making her stomach twist. "I'm just a friend who got pulled into this mess. But if we don't leave now, both of us are finished." Before she could respond, the door slammed open. Lena's breath caught in her throat as figures jumped into the room, shadows against shadows, eyes blazing with malice. "Find them," one barked, cutting through the tension. "They can't be far." The stranger turned to her, gripping her shoulder hard. "This way." They rushed through another door at the back, pushing past boxes stacked high, hearing the chaos from one side and the haunted echo of footsteps on the other. Heart pounding, Lena couldn't shake the reality. There were gears turning, and it was all crashing down around her. The air was thick with tension, and every second felt like a countdown. "Who are you really?" she gasped, trying to keep pace as they darted through a narrow alley. He hesitated, glancing back at her with shadows flickering in his gaze. "Maybe someone you shouldn't trust. But right now, there's no time to question it." As they emerged into the street, Lena's mind raced. What had Jonathan been hiding? Who were these people pursuing them? "Wait," she shouted, suddenly pulling back, the thrill of survival battling the need for answers. "What is the file, and why does it matter?" His expression shifted, panic blending with a flicker of regret. "It's not about the file, Lena. It's about what's in it." With the threat of discovery closing in, they dashed forward, but Lena knew one thing above all. The truth was a dark abyss waiting to swallow her whole, and she was barely clinging to hope. As she gripped his hand tighter, uncertainty clawed at her. What would the next twist reveal? The night was turning darker, and the shadows were growing deeper. Lena's heart raced as they dashed into the street, the cool night air biting at her skin. She glanced back, half expecting the men to be right behind them, ready to seize her and drag her into the darkness. The stranger, what was his name? Was pulling her into the chaos of an empty intersection, the sounds of the city a muffled echo in her ears. "Keep moving," he urged, urgency lacing his voice. "What if they catch us?" She gasped, adrenaline surging through her veins. The words tasted like fear. Did he really think they could escape? "We have to outsmart them. Just trust me," he said, his grip tightening like a lifeline. Trust. The word hung heavy in her chest. What could she trust? A stranger who had suddenly appeared in her life when everything was spiraling out of control? Her mind flashed back to Jonathan, his earnest eyes betraying nothing but desperation and danger. What had he entangled her in? The man led her down a narrow alley, shadows weaving around them like a living entity. The alley reeked of mildew and uncertainty, dimly lit by a flickering streetlight that painted eerie shapes against the brick walls. "Wait." She pulled back, trying to catch her breath. "If I can't trust you, then how can I trust where you're leading me?" He turned to face her, the urgency in his eyes giving way to something real in emotion she couldn't quite place. "Because if we don't keep moving, we'll be dead in minutes. They're relentless." "What do you mean?" she demanded, frustration mixing with the lingering fear. "What do you know about this file? You keep mentioning it as if it holds the key to everything." He hesitated, stepping closer, the tension between them crackling. There's information in that file that can bring powerful people down. Jonathan believed he was protecting you by keeping you out of it. But they think you know more than you do, and they will do anything to get it back. I don't know anything, she shouted, though a sliver of doubt crept in. What had she inadvertently stumbled into by following Jonathan? Listen, he stepped back, casting a quick glance toward the mouth of the alley. You don't want to be on their radar, so we need to lay low for a while. There's a place not far from here where we can hide. Just for a bit. Before she could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed off the alley walls, growing louder, more defined. Lena's breathing quickened again, panic creeping back as the reality of the situation crashed down. Now, Lena. He grabbed her hand and yanked her further down the alley. The pounding echoed closer, slipping around corners, a predator stalking its prey. Stay close. They reached a door marked with peeling paint and a flickering light. Her heart pounded ferociously in her chest as he banged on the door. A few cursed seconds passed before it swung open, revealing a scruffy-looking man with wild hair and squinted eyes. Get in. The stranger snarled, pulling Lena inside just as a shout erupted from the alley, the sound of angry voices and footsteps racing toward them. The damp room was cramped, the air thick and stale. Crates lined the walls, casting long shadows, and a single bulb above flickered ominously. The man smiled, though it was hardly reassuring. Welcome to our hideout. Who are you? Lena couldn't hold back the question. Her pulse thundered in her ears. What is your name? Caleb, he replied, wiping his brow. But right now, that doesn't matter. We don't have much time. You need to know. He stopped short, glancing back at the door as the voices drew nearer. Lena's heart sank, memories flooding back, mixing with the fear bubbling in her chest. Maybe she should have run back to Jonathan after all. Someone's coming, she whispered, backing away from the door, panic rising. Hold on, Caleb said, urgency now becoming desperation. Let me handle this. Just trust me. Before she could respond, the door nearby rattled ominously. Her breath hitched as she realized there was no unraveling the mystery now. The truth hovered just out of reach, and it was coming for her. The doorknob twisted, and the darkness outside seemed to swallow the light. Who had stepped through? Lena could hardly breathe as she stared at Caleb, her resolve crumbling. What answers lay ahead, and what horror would follow? The door swung wide, and when it opened, the suspense shattered in one breathless moment, leaving everything hanging by a thread. Lena's breath caught in her throat as the door swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow. A chill ran down her spine, and she instinctively stepped closer to Caleb, desperate for some sense of security. The man who appeared in the doorway was tall and imposing, with a thick beard that obscured his features and eyes that gleamed with an unsettling intensity. Looking for someone? He rasped, a smirk playing on his lips. Caleb squared his shoulders, transforming from a desperate ally into a stone wall of defiance. Not interested. We're just passing through. The stranger tilted his head, glancing back over his shoulder as more footsteps echoed in the alley. That doesn't sound like a wise choice given the circumstances. You know they won't stop until they find her. Lena's heart dropped. Who is this man? What did he know? Fear twisted her insides like a vice as she leaned into Caleb, urging for him to push back against the looming threat. Get out of our way, Caleb said, his voice steady but low. We have to go. Not without an exchange. The stranger stepped further into the room, blocking the only exit. You give me the file, and I'll let you both vanish into the night. Lena's pulse pounded against her temples. File? What file? She exchanged a quick glance with Caleb, and in that moment, she could see the urgency brewing in his eyes. He needed her to stay quiet. Don't listen to him, Caleb murmured, gripping her arm tightly. He's just a pawn like the rest of them. Is that right? The stranger's eyes narrowed suspiciously. You think you're somehow above this game? You're just delaying the inevitable. Lena's stomach twisted. She felt trapped, cornered, as if the walls were closing in on her. This wasn't just about her now, it was about Caleb too. She needed to act, but her mind raced, churning with questions. What file? She blurted out, her voice shaking. What do you mean? A glimmer of surprise crossed the stranger's face, but it quickly faded into arrogance. You really have no idea what you're tangled in, do you? That file contains more than you know. It's the only thing that stands between you and the very people who want to erase you. What people? Lena demanded, feeling a fire ignite in her belly. Who are you? For a fleeting moment, the tension hung in the air like the silence before a storm. The stranger chuckled, leaning back against the doorframe, his facade of confidence reshaping into something darker. You think you want the answers, but trust me, ignorance is bliss. Caleb shifted, his body tense and ready. Enough of this. We don't have time. The stranger's expression hardened. If you walk out that door, you have no idea what awaits. They'll find you. And then, well, let us just say it won't be pretty. A new wave of dread washed over Lena, and she felt the horizon of reality stretching farther away. Just as Caleb stepped forward, ready to shove the stranger aside, a loud crash echoed from the alley, metal scraping against concrete. Get ready, Caleb shouted, and his grip tightened on Lena as he pulled her behind him. The shouts outside grew louder, vibrant echoes of chaos spilling into their hideout. The stranger's eyes sparkled with excitement, renewed confidence blooming on his face. Looks like your luck's about to run out. Lena's heart raced anew. A sharp report, followed by a flurry of footsteps, sent adrenaline coursing through her. There was no way out, or was there? With resolve hardening, she felt a sense of purpose rising within her. Caleb, we have to fight. We can't let them win. Before she could act on her thought, a nasty grin spread across the stranger's face. Then brace yourself for the consequences. Just as they sprang into action, a figure burst through the door, and everything froze. Lena's eyes widened in horror, recognizing the silhouette. It wasn't just anyone, it was Jonathan. What new peril would this familiar face bring into their already tempestuous night? Jonathan stood there, the noise of chaos outside fading into a dull thrum as his presence filled the room. His dark hair looked wild, and panic etched deep lines on his face. Lena. Caleb. We don't have time. He glanced at the imposing figure blocking the door. What are you doing here? Nice to see you too, Jonathan, the stranger sneered. He pushed off the doorframe, stepping forward. You've arrived just in time for the show. Lena felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Jonathan was supposed to be safe, far away from whatever she had gotten mixed up in. But the way he carried himself now betrayed a different reality. He was entangled in this just like they were. Do you know this guy? Caleb shot a glance at Lena, confusion and anger brewing in his eyes. Jonathan shrugged, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Only by reputation. He's enough. The stranger's voice boomed through the small room. If you all want a chance at survival, look at the file and tell me how you wish to proceed. Lena's head spun. File? Was it that important? With everything swirling around her, she felt it was more than just paper, it was a ticking time bomb. Your time is almost up. The stranger advanced, his eyes glinting like shards of glass, while the sounds of renewed shouts erupted just beyond the door. Lena, we have to go, Caleb urged, his voice low but laced with fear. He turned slightly, creating a human shield between her and the door. You don't understand. If we stay here, we will end up in their hands. I'm not just going to walk away. Lena felt her pulse quickening. I can't let them capture me. I need to know what's in that file. Are you out of your mind? Jonathan broke in sharply, grabbing her shoulders and shaking her lightly. This isn't the time for bravery. We need to escape. No, Caleb interjected, voice tense. In this game, there are no winners. We have to fight. Everything felt heavy, the weight of their decisions almost too much to bear. But Lena couldn't shake the feeling that if they ran now, they would be running forever. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed from outside, followed by a chorus of terrified voices. The stranger grinned, and she knew he enjoyed the chaos. They're closing in. Choose your side. Enough. Jonathan's eyes flared with determination. Lena, there's a back exit. We can make it if we go now. Before she could respond, the stranger lunged forward. Caleb collided with him, and they both went tumbling to the floor. Lena froze, torn. She wanted to help Caleb, but Jonathan's desperate gaze urged her towards self-preservation. "Now, Lena, go," Jonathan urged, pulling her toward the door while frantic scuffles erupted behind them. The seconds felt like hours as Lena hesitated. With every ounce of will, she tore her gaze from the fight unfolding in the cramped room, racing alongside Jonathan toward the back exit. But just as they neared the door, a towering figure stepped in their way, blocking the escape route. Lena's heart dropped. What now? In this moment, the stakes felt impossibly high. Who had they angered? What were they really running from? As the confrontation unfolded, she realized the path ahead wasn't just physical. It was tangled with secrets and decisions that would change everything. Little did she know, the truth behind that file was about to emerge in a way none of them expected. "Lena." Caleb's voice cut through her thoughts. The moment hung thick with tension. What lay beyond the door? More danger or a chance at freedom? Before her feet could decide, a shot rang out, followed by a piercing scream. Would they escape this hellish night, or would they be forced to face the truth head-on? Panic surged through the room like a live wire. Lena's chest tightened as she processed the chaos, the looming figure, Caleb's struggle, and Jonathan's frantic pull urging her forward. She wanted to scream out for Caleb, but the fear held her voice hostage. The towering figure blocking their exit shifted, his presence massive and intimidating. He was a wall of muscle and malice, eyes cold and calculating. Lena could feel Jonathan's grip tightening on her arm. "We can't let him stop us," he breathed, the urgency clear in his tone. "Move," Jonathan shouted, and without thinking, Lena dashed to the side, desperate to evade capture. At that moment, the door flew open with a deafening crash. There stood a group of men, tough, armed, and ready for anything. The room exploded in noise. "Get them," one of the new arrivals bellowed, and her heart plummeted. They were done for. Lena stumbled backward, eyes darting for an escape route. Then, from the chaos, she spotted an open window, the perfect chance. "There," she shouted, pointing it out despite the weight of dread anchoring her feet. "Jonathan," she cried, fear spilling over into her voice. "We can jump." He hesitated, swirling back to Caleb, who was still grappling with the stranger on the ground. The view of her friends consumed in this nightmare constricted her heart. She wanted to pull Caleb away, but the stranger was a beast, overpowering him. "Lena, jump." Caleb managed to gasp, his eyes wide with realization. The urgency in his voice snapped Jonathan back. 1, 2, 3. Jonathan counted. They leapt for the window, the glass shattering loudly beneath their weight. Air rushed around them, and for a moment, it felt like freedom. But reality hit hard as they crashed onto the grass below. Pain shot through Lena's ankle, but she bit her lip and staggered to her feet. "Keep moving," Jonathan yelled, grabbing her hand and pulling her into a run. They dashed through the alleyways, breath clouding in the night air, desperately putting distance between them and the chaos behind. The sounds of pursuit, yelling, footsteps, and the dull thud of their hearts chased them. "They want to stop," Jonathan shouted as they rounded a corner. "We need to find a place to hide." Lena felt the fragile thread of hope she'd clutched on to begin to fray. "What about Caleb? He'll find us. We need to get to safety." They stumbled into a narrow street lined with darkened windows. Through a flicker of lights in one of the buildings, Lena glimpsed a flicker of panic mirrored in her reflection. "Over there." Jonathan pointed to a rickety staircase leading to a lower-level entrance. "We can hide in there." They ducked inside, the door creaking ominously as they entered. The musty air stung her nostrils, and shadows danced against the walls. They pressed themselves against the cold concrete, breathless. Lena glanced at Jonathan, his expression intense, arms trembling from adrenaline and fear. "Do you think they'll find us?" Jonathan shook his head, yet uncertainty glimmered in his eyes. "I don't know, but we can't stay here long." Amid their silent panic, Lena felt an insatiable urge to know what was in that file. What was it? "It must be important for them to hunt us like this," she whispered, gripping Jonathan's arm for support. Before he could respond, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed from the outside. She jolted, a sense of dread twisting her stomach. "They're here suddenly." The door rattled violently, and panic gripped them both. Would they be able to survive the night? And more importantly, what secrets were they about to uncover? The door swung open, revealing the stranger with a smug look on his face. "Time us up, kids," he declared, and Lena's heart sank. What came next could end everything or begin their quest for the truth that lay hidden in the shadows. The air was thick with tension, every heartbeat echoing in Lena's ears as she backed against the cold, damp wall. The stranger stood there, a looming shadow in the doorway, smug and self-assured. To say she felt cornered would be an understatement. "Time us up, kids," he repeated, the words dripping with menace, and the hint of a smile tugged at his lips like a cat toying with its prey. "Lena, we need to think fast," Jonathan hissed, tension radiating from him like a live wire. He turned to face the advancing figure, a fire igniting in his eyes. "Get ready to make your move," he urged her. Her heart thundered against her ribcage. The moment of survival was demanding her courage, but doubt flooded her mind. Was it endgame? Was Caleb gone for good? As if sensing her fear, Jonathan leaned closer, whispering urgently, "We can't let him do this. Stick to the plan. When I say go, we bolt for the back." Lena nodded, doubt still gnawing at her but with a sliver of hope sparking deep within. The figure shifted, stepping further into the room, darkness following him like a cloak. "What are you two hoping for? A fairy tale escape? This isn't going to end how you think." His voice was laced with venom, and Lena could feel her stomach twist in knots. With every word, he seemed to relish their predicament. "You want to take us down without a fight," Jonathan replied defiantly, adrenaline fueling his words. "Fighting is the least of your worries," the stranger shot back, eyes glinting with mirth. "You're in too deep, and this game? It doesn't play favorites." And then it hit Lena, a thought sparkling, illuminating the fog of fear surrounding her. "The file. What do you want with the file?" She clenched her fists, her voice ringing loud in the suffocating silence. The stranger turned sharply, surprise flickering across his face before it morphed back into a confident facade. Someone as sharper than she looks. "The file holds secrets that can topple kings and break the powerful. And your precious Jonathan? He has it with him." Jonathan's face tightened, and for a split second, fear flashed in his eyes, real fear. "What are you planning?" he demanded, stepping protectively in front of Lena, ready for battle. "Let's just say," the stranger leaned closer, his voice lowered to a whisper that felt like ice sinking into her veins. "I want it back before it's too late. And if you two are in my way, well, I'm sure the boys outside would love to join in." The door rattled again, this time with heavier weight, footfalls pounding closer. Lena's heart plunged further into darkness. But this wasn't just about survival anymore. No, it was grounding into something more, her own autonomy, the truth of their chaotic intertwining lives, and facing the hidden darkness. "No more running," she declared, surprising even herself. "I want to let you manipulate us." The stranger raised an eyebrow, open curiosity mixed with arrogance. "Oh? You think you have a choice?" A loud crash erupted from the back, forcing her to tighten her grip on Jonathan's arm. "Now, Jonathan!" she cried, feeling invigorated by her own fierce resolve. Just as Jonathan started to surge forward, Lena grabbed hold of the old toolbox by her feet and hurled it toward the stranger with all her might. The clattering metal echoed, sweeping the man's confidence away. He stumbled, and in that breath, Jonathan lunged forward, taking Lena's hand and pulling her with him. They darted for the opening just as the stranger regained his balance, shouting for backup as the chaos behind closed in. Lena's heart raced faster than her feet could carry her. Blinded by adrenaline, they burst into the night, racing through the alleyways they had escaped before, not knowing if Caleb was close by or lost to them. Outside, the night air filled her lungs like a burst of light. There was a fire to them now, a momentum that threatened to break the darkness, each stride fueled by determination. Her mind was shifting, piecing together fragments of the enigma that had drawn her in, longing to discover the truth behind it all. "Where now?" Jonathan panted, glancing over his shoulder, measuring the distance they had gained. The figure loomed in the darkness of the alley, but they were moving too fast, melding into the shadow of the city. "There." She pointed to an unmarked van parked crookedly at the curb under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. They rushed toward it without hesitation, both scrambling to pull the door open as fear tightened its grip once more. Inside, the van smelled of leather and gasoline, a sanctuary amid chaos. Jonathan slid into the driver's seat while Lena collapsed into a worn seat at the back, her heart beating wildly as her thoughts raced. "Go," she urged, scanning the street behind them. Jonathan turned the key, and the engine roared to life. Just as he pulled onto the street, the figure from the warehouse slammed his hand against the side of the van. "You think you can get away from us?" he shouted, but they were gone, the van accelerating into the night, the city lights blurring past like memories fading from view. Lena leaned back against the seat, her heart still racing, the weight of the mystery deepening. "What do we do now?" she asked, endorphins still firing through her. "I don't know," Jonathan admitted honestly, tension lacing his voice. "But we need to find Caleb, and then we have to uncover what's in that file." Lena nodded, a flicker of resolve burning within her. She might not know everything yet, but she did know one thing: she was no longer afraid. She would face whatever darkness lay ahead because the quest for the truth had only just begun, and as the lights of the city faded behind them, she felt a renewed sense of agency take hold, a fierce resolve to fight for the answers they sought and the redemption they all needed. At that moment, Lena sighed deeply, feeling lighter as they sped toward the unknown. Powered by the choices they had made, a leap into the chaos that they were determined to face together. Now is the time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that unfold. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let us know you're here for it. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this explosive ending. What did you think would happen next? Let's hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference. Let's keep this community thriving.